Good evening and welcome to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour. Well, here we are in 2018. We've never in history been more connected to one another, and yet at the same time, we've never been more profoundly disconnected. How do we make meaningful connections in this new digital era? And more importantly, how do we find love, real, everlasting, no mind games, soulmate kind of love that we all aspire to? Well, joining us here in the studio tonight are two wonderful guests that are going to help you find love in 2018. It's my pleasure to introduce to you, firstly, Dr. Stacy Goldstein, who has a very intriguing background. She fixes backs by day and hearts by night. A chiropractor practicing in Westboro, Stacy is also the director of community building at one of Ottawa's largest and most established synagogues, Congregation Masegei Hadass. Last year, after meeting hundreds of single young adults looking for long-term relationships, Stacy decided to add one more job to her list and become a community matchmaker. Welcome to the show, Stacy.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure to have you. Next, it's an honor to introduce Suzie, who is the world-renowned dating expert, coach, and founder of SingleDatingDiva.com. It's an award-winning blog about being single, dating, and relationships. Most importantly, Suzie believes that single is not a bad word and dating can be fun. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thanks so much for coming here. Before we talk about how and where to find love, let's first and foremost try to answer the question of what is love. And so I'd like to show you this brief video featuring Rabbi Twersky's Kind of Love. Special thanks to Jay Insider for allowing us to share this with our viewers. Let's have a look.
Love is a word that in our culture has almost lost its meaning. There's a very interesting story about the Rebbe of Kotsk, who came across a young man who was clearly enjoying a dish of fish that he was eating. And he said, young man, why are you eating that fish? And the young man says, because I love fish. He says, oh, you love the fish? That's why you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it. He said, don't tell me you love the fish. You love yourself. And because the fish tastes good to you, therefore, you took it out of the water and killed it and boiled it. So much of what is love, right, is fish love, right? And so, young couple falls in love. Young man and young woman fall in love. What does that mean? That means that he saw in this woman someone who he felt could provide him with all of his physical and emotional needs. And she saw in this man somebody she feels that she can write. That was love, right? But each one is looking out for their own needs. Right? It's not love for the other. The other person becomes a vehicle for my gratification. Too much of what is called love is fish love. Right? An external love is not on what I'm going to get, but what I'm going to give. We had an ethicist, Rabbi Dessler, who said the people make a serious mistake in thinking that you give to those whom you love. And the answer is, the real answer is, you love those to whom you give. Right? And his point is, if I give something to you, I've invested myself in you. Right? And since self-love is a given, everybody loves themselves, now that part of me has become in you, right, there's part of me in you that I love. Right? So true love is a love of giving, not a love of receiving.
Fish love. So it's not that we love the people who do things for us, but rather the people for whom we do things. What do you think love is, Suzie?
I think love is sharing your life with others, not necessarily romantically, just and giving of yourself. It's about giving of self rather than taking. I think what the point he was trying to make. I mean, when you give, you love. When you take, it's not necessarily love. And we're taking. It's a society of taking. And what can I get? What's in it for me? And I think refocusing on really the true purpose of love and giving and sharing your life with another person is important.
Stacy, this is a core value in Judaism. What do you think about what we just saw?
So I think it's a great video, and I've never heard it termed fish love, but it's so appropriate. It is that kind of love that doesn't quite have the longevity versus what we really want, which is that core deep love. So Judaism really teaches that love is an evolving process between two people. And even when a couple is getting married, it's not necessarily a prerequisite that they are deeply and madly in love, which is what we tend to see in a lot of movies, or even just what I think a lot of people are aspiring to, is to have that deep emotional, that deep infatuated love. According to Judaism, it's really under the wedding canopy that two people come together and they join together as one person, and from there you really have the ability to grow and develop love. The idea of falling in love, it's like this passive process that might happen to you if you're lucky, or love at first sight, where if you're in the right place at the right time, you'll meet that person and you'll fall in love. That's really not the way Judaism sees love. It sees it as a process of two people meeting, finding a lot in common, choosing to build a life together, and then working towards that.
Suzie, how do you think this definition fits in with some of your clients who are not religious or who are not Jewish?
I think everyone is looking for that love, that the forever, happily ever after, I call it, and I think they are looking for that quick and easy fix, and a lot of my clients just don't want to take their time to meet the right person, or they get frustrated with like endless negative experiences, and they see maybe their friend met someone and it was love at first sight, or all these urban myths of my friend's friend's cousin met on Tinder and they're living happily ever after. Well, you know what? Look at yourself and look at your goals. That's what I tell my clients, because love is a process. It's not an overnight process. It's a take your time, get to know them, as you were saying, and build that deep love, because something that happens too quick, like I tell people, they're looking for that quick, like you meet someone and it's like fireworks. Sparks. But if you think about it, like a fire that burns too fast, too hot, is going to burn out really fast. Whereas a slow burning fire that you just keep putting kindling in is going to last a lot longer. And I kind of give that analogy to all my clients, because they all want that quick love. They don't want to wait for it, and they jump into things too quickly and end up alone in the end.
At the same time, if marriage is your end goal, I find that some couples just don't take a lot of time to go towards the altar. Now, you, Stacy, you told me earlier that you had met and gotten engaged and married your husband in 7 months. Yeah. And you're happily married, you have 3 beautiful kids, and you've actually shared some photos with us of your beautiful family. Maybe we could pull up some of those photos so we can have a look. So there you are. This is your engagement photo. Yeah. How did you meet? How did it all transpire?
So, I always think we got really lucky, because before we met each other, we had a lot of clarity as to what we were looking for. So I do think when we met, it did help. We met in May. We met in February at a holiday gathering. At the time, we weren't available, but we do remember we met at that point, and we had some common friends. Fast forward a few months later, my husband, his name is Michael, he was interested, and rather than actually contacting me directly, he actually contacted a friend of mine who I had actually put as a point person to say, basically, you're the one anybody has to contact. I was in school at the time, and I didn't want to be distracted. And she also was able to then vet what would be a good match. So she was sort of the person I put in place as my matchmaker unofficially, and she did a great job. She had a chat with him. She thought he sounded really impressive. He was really interested. She was my gatekeeper.
Is that normally how it works?
Yeah, sometimes that's sort of what matchmakers could do. Sometimes that's what friends can do. Sometimes that's what parents can do if you're comfortable. But it is really important to have somebody sort of decide, well, it depends on the person, but if you decided that this person knows you well and knows what you're looking for, to help you filter, maybe call it a filter. So she was impressed. I then got a call from her, and she said, there's this guy, he'd like to go out with you. And I was really impressed with him. So we went out. We went out 3 dates in 1 week, and I remember at the end of the week, I thought, wow, this guy is really special. This guy has so many of the same values and visions that I do. So I'd really like to continue going out with him. I'm not going to say at the end of that first week I was ready to jump into marriage, but I wanted to see him again. So we dated throughout the summer, and we got engaged in August, married in December. Wow. So, and 8 years later, we're still together, and we have three children.
And Suzie, last time you were on the show was 2 years ago, and in those 2 years, you're married, you have a baby, big changes.
Big changes.
How did you get here?
Well, basically, I took my own advice. Actually, it was funny because I was doing a lot of shows and a lot of events, and my dad sat me down. He's like, why don't you take your own advice? And I go, I am, Dad, I am. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to refocus, you know, and kind of put it out there what I really, really want. And I did. And I met my husband at an event, a fundraising event, and we hit it off right away. And but it was funny because I didn't really want to go out with him right away. He kind of pushed me. He's like, come on, do you want to go out with me or not?
Why were you reluctant?
I was just tired of dating. I'm like, and then I said, okay, fine, I'll go out with you. And I did, and I'm happy I did. And like that night, we just had an amazing time. We literally closed the place down, and we saw each other again later in the week, and we just progressed from there. But we actually took it very, very slow. We both knew what we wanted. We wanted someone with shared values and family first type of person, and we found that in each other. But we also wanted to make sure. So we just kept seeing each other slowly, and it grew. Our love grew from there, and it took several months. We took us a year to get engaged, and then get married and have the baby. And so it was just it took time. We took our time with it because we wanted to make sure, and I think because we knew what we wanted. And we just wanted, we didn't want to waste our time getting into a marriage and longer term relationship with someone who perhaps wasn't the right fit.
And I find it interesting that you actually met your husband offline.
Yeah.
When so much of your work centers around online dating. Do you find, Stacy, that is there any online dating going on in the community?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's for every dating site, there's a Jewish equivalent. There was J-Date.
Yeah.
Now there's J-Swipe, the equivalent of Tinder.
Oh, I didn't know about that.
Yeah, no, there definitely is. And again, the Jewish community is very broad, and different people do different things. So yes, there is definitely online dating. Traditional matchmaking, I think, has seen a resurgence, and even among people who wouldn't necessarily classify themselves as religious, I think you're seeing people reach out more to one-on-one others to get that connection.
And I want to hear more about how the matchmaking community works and get into online and offline dating profiles. We'll be right back. Don't go away.
The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Number one for good times.
Oh my God, this is my song. I've been listening to the radio. Oh.
Number one for favorites.
She could hear those church bells ringing, ringing, and up in the loft that home.
Number one for new music.
Even when I'm 1,000 miles.
Number one for country. Country 101.1.
Well, join us on Thursday. Senator Nancy Green-Rain is going to be here. How cool is this? Canadian legend to mark the 50th anniversary of her gold medal in the giant slalom in the 1968 Winter Games. We're going to live all the magic that happened back in 1968. What is the Ottawa Tool Library? We'll find out more about that, and we'll learn more about Operation Come Home. It's only going to happen here Thursday at 1 p.m. Rogers TV repeats, of course, at 6 and 11.
I'm Paula Roy, and I'd like to invite you to join me in my kitchen each week as I share with you my favorite recipes, hints, and tips.
Play 4 games of bingo from the comfort of your own home each Monday at 7 p.m. for your chance to win money from our $2,000 regular bingo or $5,000 super bingo night. Kiwanis TV Bingo, Mondays at 7 p.m. on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and tonight we're talking about how to find love in 2018. We're joined in the studio by wonderful guests, Dr. Stacy Goldstein and Suzie the Dating Diva. Thanks so much for being in the studio with us tonight. I wanted to pick up on the conversation that we had before we went to break, which is talking a little bit about online dating and perhaps a gradual growth of offline dating, perhaps because some people are just so tired of some of the scams and the fraud and just weeding through everything. Online dating can be so exhausting. And Suzie, what's your take on that in terms of the clients that come to see you? Are you seeing a move towards more old school ways of meeting each other?
Yeah, there's online dating fatigue. People are just tired. There's so many different sites, and there's a lot of, when online dating started, there was a lot more authenticity on there. Now there's a lot of people pretending to be someone they're not, and it's a lot.
I once saw a cartoon, a Far Side cartoon of a dog sitting at the computer, and the caption was, "On the internet, no one knows you're a dog."
It's true. Yeah. So you could be whoever you want online, and that's why I tell everyone, take everything that someone tells you with a grain of salt, because you really don't know. And so people are starting to get tired of it, so they want to go to more unconventional ways. So maybe matchmaking, maybe going to events, but I try to encourage my clients to do both, to do online, but also to go to events offline, to attend different events in Ottawa, not singles events, but actual events where they meet other people, social events.
And Suzie, you were telling us earlier that you've even had people contact you from other countries wondering if you could write their profiles for them and even impersonate them and kind of act like that filter.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who want, it's actually, some people actually do it. I don't, ethically I don't, to do their online dating for them. So you could pay somebody to do your profile and go on there, chat with people, and you just go on dates with them. That's one thing. Another thing that I think I've seen more people want to do is, from other countries, want to date people from Ottawa, for example, so they want to find someone in Ottawa to do their dating for them, and then they communicate with them. But that's ripe for catfishing, and who knows what their intentions are, right? If they can't, if they can't do, because a lot of these sites are geo-located, so you need someone that's there to do the dating for you. So that's why I tell people, be very, very aware of what you're doing online.
Those are some good points. We actually have a caller on the line. Farah, are you there?
Yes, hello.
Hi. Did you have a question for our guest?
Yeah, I was wondering how many dates do you guys think is typical to go on before going to their home? Also, how long should people wait before sleeping together? Is there like a typical timeline that's out there right now? Or is this a good way to judge someone's character, or should you just kind of go with the flow?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it also fits into the whole Aziz Ansari debacle that's been hitting the sound waves lately. What do you think, Suzie? I mean, is there a timeline?
For safety reasons, I always tell my readers and my clients, go 3 dates public, 3 to 4 dates public always before going to someone's home. When it's a home date, there's always the kind of insinuation that there might be sex. So don't, even if someone doesn't say that there's going to, or they say, no, we're just going to watch a movie. When you're in that intimate setting, sometimes you can't control yourself and things happen. And especially not on a first date, like that Aziz Ansari situation. I mean, she put her, he hadn't, guys have no right, or girls even, to assault anyone, but don't put yourself in that situation either. That's why I always encourage people, always have public dates, just for your own safety, guys and girls. I've heard of guys get assaulted too, so it's not only one-sided. So just be very careful, and you're responsible for your safety. So don't go to someone's home, and don't invite them to your home. Even don't have them pick you up. meet in a public place. This is a stranger. Remember, stranger danger. Stranger danger is real. Even at our age, even when you're dating, this person you meet online might not be who they say they are. So be very, very careful. And for the second part of that question, the sex part of it, don't have sex until you're ready to invest emotionally in that person. If you're just looking for sex and that's all you want, then do whatever, whenever you like. But until you're ready to invest emotionally in that person, if you're looking for a long-term relationship, get to know the person really well first, because when you have sex, it does cloud your judgment about somebody. All those love hormones, oxytocin, they all get involved. So you need to be really careful about what you're doing. When it feels right and you're comfortable with what you're doing, that if something doesn't work out, then you're okay with it, then at that point, you can be intimate with somebody. But you have to be very careful and again, protect yourself and physically and emotionally.
Now, Stacy, a big part of dating in the Orthodox Jewish community is, asserting and valuing those physical boundaries and not touching much or at all. What's the value in that kind of approach?
So I know it's going to sound probably very dramatic compared to Susie's answer, but Jews that are dating traditionally, those from a bit more of an observant background, will generally not touch at all when dating, and it's something called shomer negia. It's being observant of touch, and as a chiropractor, I'm going to say that it's something that I know when I lay hands on someone that it forms an immediate bond. It's a bond of trust, it's a bond of intimacy, and I respect that the patient has given me the right to do that. So in a traditional dating setting, there's really no touch, and from both people who have grown up observant and known that would be expected their whole lives, to even those who have become more observant later in life, which is a bit of a new trend. It's something that most people really reflect on as being a highly positive aspect to their dating, because there's no hormones. You said it, with sex, but really it happens at that first touch. That as soon as you're touching, as soon as you're hugging, and there's body contact, you do get a bit of a cloud of vision. There's a lot of chemistry that we want to see in a couple, and that's something that shouldn't at all take the back burner. But if you're just sitting and talking, you're going to feel that chemistry. Once you actually lay hands and connect physically, it's hard to separate that from the other chemistry that's brewing. So when I'm speaking with couples, singles, I really encourage them, no matter what their level of observance or background, to go into that first date touch-free. As in no touch, you can say it's my rule, touch-free from start to finish. The other advantage that gives, Suzie alluded to it, is that there's no expectation. There's no question as to what's going to happen at the end of the day. Will there be a hug? Will there be a kiss? Will there be an ask home? None of that's going to exist. The date is going to be purely for the purpose of getting to know each other. And that releases a lot of stress and anxiety from women in particular, but I think also for men, from trying to figure out where this date's going to end. So you're able to just focus on the date and getting to know the other person you're there with.
Interesting. Thank you so much for calling, Farah, and for coming in with your questions. Tell me a little bit about how the matchmaking process works. Now, you've already succeeded in getting a few couples together, and you've shared a few photos with us. One recently had their wedding. That was Mark and Devora. Maybe we could pull some of those photos up. Mark and Devora sent in there.
That's us.
That's you. Yes, that's Mark and Devora. They had an engagement and a wedding. Was it just this past summer?
Yeah, that's right.
And then Ian and Bettina, who are also dating.
No, Ian and Bettina are married, and they've just welcomed their first baby boy.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, tell me a little bit about how the process works.
So those couples actually met. Kind of what Suzie said was unconventional ways, but I think it's actually really quite conventional. It's the way that people used to meet before online dating. So they met at our house, which wasn't that long ago. So they met at our house. So my husband and I have for years now been hosting Friday night dinners for young professionals in our house. And over the course of the many years we've done that, we've had many couples, not just those two, meet at our house just because they were there with similar values. They wanted to be in a Jewish gathering. It was an opportunity to eat and drink with great company, and they were able to just chat and meet each other. So both of those couples met really without any assistance from us, and they're one of several others that met just over our dinner table. So that's one way I'd say that matchmaking can be done. You don't have to necessarily be the one-on-one blind date setup, but you can just create environments for your friends to meet, thinking about potentially what types of people you know, and have a dinner party and purposefully invite a few of those people, not necessarily all singles, because that might make people a bit more nervous that they're at a singles event, but just an event where people can hang out and maybe then take the time to introduce a guy and a girl who you think might be really good for each other. So we've had many couples meet at our house that way, and it's really a pleasure that that's happened. In a more formal way, for the last number of years, because we've gotten to know so many young adults, we have specifically said, hey, I think this person's great for that person, which is a little bit more that matchmaking, two people that would otherwise not have met, whether because of geography or circles. And what we really do is we try to get to know each person. I do have a questionnaire I ask people to fill out, which really goes through both who they are and what they're up to in life, and also what they're looking for. And that process is really important for a lot of the singles I know, because it's the first time they really had to put a pen to a paper or to a keyboard and think about what they're looking for. So there's clarity just there. And then I sort of sit and try and think about some good ideas, and some couples work out, some not, but really the vast majority are grateful for just that extra help and the vote of confidence that I'm giving both of the people before I set them up. So it's a bit like having a reference on both sides, saying, I think you're good for each other.
That exercise is sitting down and really thinking about what you want in life and from a relationship, I think is essential to success. And what do you think, Suzie? I mean, what do you tell your clients, and especially your clients who have online dating fatigue, in terms of completing this exercise and then afterwards, what kind of advice do you give them in finding people outside of the cyberspace?
Yeah, well, I have the same process with my clients. I have them look back and kind of look at their trends, and then I have them kind of look at what went wrong and what went right, and to kind of hone in on, okay, what path we want to go forward with. And I have them look at what their values are and what they're looking for and what they have to offer. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget. They say, I want, but they forget, okay, what do I have to offer? What's my value added? What you have to sell yourself. I always tell them, it's kind of, I know it's a little crass, but it's your product, and you want to sell that product and you want to market it properly. So you have to have the right image and the right like logo and slogan and everything. That's how online dating works. It's a competitive world out there, especially in online dating. So I help them by making them more competitive. So I help them with their image and kind of what they portray, their communication skills, conversation skills, which is like social skills are lacking now more than ever. And so that's something I work on with them. So how to market themselves better. And usually that works with most people as long as they're game and they come out of their comfort zone long enough to kind of look at, okay, what's out there and what can I offer out there. When you're looking at it from that perspective, you're able to get more. Yeah.
I want to hear about your thoughts about how to create the ultimate online dating profile, do's and don'ts. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
Some talk about this, and it's going to materialize here. Chmielewski, shot scores! Shot scores! What a shot!
67's action on Rogers TV.
Sometimes, for a wish to come true, it takes a kingdom, because together is stronger. Tied tight, united we stand, in honor of one child's wish, to fuel the fire that will grant many more. Join the kingdom.
With NHL Center Ice, you get a premium ticket to the games you want every night of the season. With up to 37 out-of-market games a week to choose from, you'll get more goals, more saves, more non-stop action from the teams you love. NHL Center Ice, part of the Super Sports Pack. For only $35.95 a month, Rogers customers get all this. Order through your remote or call 1-888-ROGERS-1 today.
My name is Bara Adi and I'm a volunteer at Rogers TV. I love most about volunteering that I do give back to this community, and I love the experience I'm gaining. This is my major and I really do love it. I do it with passion. As a newcomer, I wanted to feel that I fit in the community. It's made me more confident and it's improved my communication skills.
Uninterrupted coverage of speeches from Ottawa's business leaders, visionaries, and social figures. Watch new episodes of Podium at its new time, Tuesdays at 9:30 p.m., exclusively on Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and tonight we're discussing how to find love in 2018 with special guests Stacy Goldstein and Suzie the Dating Diva. Before we went to break, Suzie, we were talking a little bit about some of the exercises that you go through with your clients. For those of your clients who have online dating fatigue, where do you suggest they go to meet a potential partner?
I have them look. Facebook events has so many things. You can see what's going on in your city, so find something that's going on that interests you. As well, meetups, like meetup.com is great because you look at something that interests you, like a common interest, so you know when you go to that group to do those activities that these people like the same things you do. Also, if you're religiously inclined, go to your church, synagogue, whatever, to meet somebody. Like there's always activities for singles or at least young adults or adults there. So find something you're interested in and go. You can meet a lot of people that way, and at least you'll go and find common interests, friends, and those friends might know somebody, kind of thing. So, yeah.
Okay. And for those of us who may want some help and guidance in crafting the perfect online dating profile, you've actually shared some tips and tricks with us. You've actually shared some do's and don'ts for the photos that you need to select for your profile. So maybe we could pull up the don'ts first, because the don'ts are always more fun than the do's. So we've got an assortment of people here in various states of undress. I'm guessing that's a big no-no.
That's a big no-no. Any state of undress is not a good idea. Anything too extreme, like our group pictures are no-no because you don't know who the person is, right? So that's a big no-no. As well, if you can't see the face, like if the girl with the sunglasses as well, you can't see her eyes. There's some sites actually that will remove your photo if you don't have a picture with your eyes there. Interesting. So some of the don'ts, like again, more group pictures. The one with just the drinks. I mean, you can't see the person or anything too modelly. It's okay to get a professional picture as long as it's a natural picture.
So almost treated like a job interview, right?
Exactly.
Like a headshot. I want to get into the do's, but first we have a caller. Cindy, are you on the line?
Yes, hi.
Hi, thanks so much for watching. Did you have a question for our guest?
I do, yeah. Sometimes I feel inclined to approach the guy first, because the stereotype and the typical thing is that the guy will approach you, but sometimes, that doesn't always happen, so I feel like I should be the one to approach him, but I'm not sure if that's okay for women to make the first move. Like, what if it works out? Will that set the tone for the rest of the relationship?
Right, you mean that you'll have to initiate everything sort of going forwards?
Yeah, exactly.
What do you think, Stacy?
So I'm going to say go for it. 100% go for it. If you have noticed that there's someone there that you think there's chemistry with and you like to get to know better, go for it. There's no need not to. I'd say it's a great initiative to take. If your concern is going forward in the relationship, that's going to be consistent, well, you're going to feel that out as you get to know the guy. You're asking him on the first date. If that goes well, then you're going to get to know his personality better and see where that goes. But I certainly wouldn't shy away from asking a guy out. Guys are shy, and guys are also sometimes now not sure when a girl wants to be asked out. So go up, stay high, see what happens, and if you feel like there's good potential there, then go for it. Ask him out.
There's this idea, as stereotypical as it may sound, that men are supposed to be the hunters. What do you think, Suzie?
I agree. If you have a common interest and you know that there's there's something there, there's a spark. If you're not comfortable like asking on a date, I think just ask to an activity. Say, hey, there's this thing going on next week. Would you like to come with me? So that way, it's just not saying, oh, hey, do you want to go on a date with me, or do you want to go for a coffee?
Make it sound like you're two friends checking something out.
Exactly, and then let things go from there. If you're not comfortable, and some guys are uncomfortable with women asking them on a date. They feel it kind of emasculates them. So I do think women should, and I think even men can use that as well for asking women on a date. Ask to an event. Say, hey, this is going on. Leave it casual, and I think it's more comfortable that way. But go for it. If there's someone you like, nothing wrong with that. These days, there's no like rules, just do what feels right and comfortable. Go with your gut. If something feels right, then great. If it doesn't, then go the other direction.
Great tips. Does that answer your question, Cindy?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Before Cindy came on the line, we were talking about the don'ts of online dating profiles, and maybe we can talk about some of the do's, some of the photos that you think would be appropriate to include on your dating profile. Yeah. Let's bring that up and have a look. Like typically you would have like a nice headshot, yeah, very job interview-ish.
Yeah. Well, I always tell my clients and my readers 3 pictures. One, a nice headshot. One, a full body that shows a full body pic. And one, you have you doing something you like. Not to put pictures with other people, not put your kids. Just something to demonstrate who you are. So here we have someone, she's showing just a nice headshot, someone with his bicycle, girl with playing her guitar, a guy on his computer, just a guy writing. That sort of thing, and a girl, it looks like maybe she's traveling. So showing your interest, showing who you are, demonstrate what type of person, what you're bringing to the table, I think is important. But leave them natural. Like as I mentioned, if you do get professional pictures, make sure that they're natural.
As a matchmaker, Stacy, do you ever advise some of the people that come to you to get some photos taken, maybe if they're looking at marrying someone outside of the city?
So I think I don't usually recommend to get photos taken, because I think especially for women that adds more pressure to that physical appearance. But I often do ask just for a photo, because people do want to know what a person looks like. I usually try and guide people away from making that the first thing they want to ask me about. I want to talk about who this person is and what they're doing in life and what their personality is like and where those shared values are. And after all of that, clearly I'm going to make sure that I'm sending something along as a photo to say, okay, this is what this person looks like, so you can recognize them should you go on a date. But I think now with a bit of the Tinder culture, everybody's the first thing they're looking at is photos, and they're swiping based on photos. And there's no personality in a photo. There's no values in that photo. So I try and make that the second stage of vetting a couple, is looking at everything else first, and then afterwards saying, okay, here's the photo, and when you meet, you'll find out if there's chemistry. I ask people not to really to say no to a date based on a photo. I think that really minimizes the recommendation of like this person could be really good for you. A photo is just a 2D image, and there's a 3D person behind that, and I want you to give that person a chance.
Very interesting. Suzie, let's talk about some of the text that goes into crafting an online profile. You sent us some examples of some of the things that you should include. So what's first and foremost?
First and foremost, just make sure you have an enticing header. Like here, totally more fun than your ex. Find out why. Provocative. Yeah. But you get people, like one that really worked, like the top 5 reasons you want to date me, or things like that. Something that makes someone want to click. Because your picture, online dating, that's the most important thing, because people will see your picture first and read everything second. So you have to have that good picture, but again, your heading is second most important. And then what's in your profile is important as well. You want to make sure to leave something to the imagination. Tell people a little bit about yourself, but not everything. It shouldn't be long. Just little bits and pieces, like things that show your values, what you're looking for, who you are, not where you work or what you do. Like you can say in general, and then leave something for people to ask you about. You can say, I enjoy traveling to places that are historic. and recently I went to Rome, for example. Okay, great. So someone can ask you about that. Right? Okay, I've traveled to X, Y, Z. You don't detail, don't put lists, don't write everything, just little bits and pieces. And I think that's more important to leave to the imagination. It makes you more interesting and gives people things to ask you about.
Stacy, do you tease out those little nuggets from the people that come to see you when you're acting as the gatekeeper?
Yeah, for sure. So I have this questionnaire, which is really helpful to me. One, because it helps the individual figure out what they're looking for. But I ask a few very, very general questions. So, what you're up to, what you're doing in life, what you want in the future. I ask people to sort of do a bit of visioning on that questionnaire about what they see themselves wanting in their future home. And then I ask them specific questions that, like, would you date this and would you date this? The second part of the questionnaire is about what you're looking for. And that's usually what's harder for people to define. But again, it's a really important exercise. So I ask what they're looking for, what you're looking for. And then I ask another question. And it's not a trick, but it's what type of people do you tend to get along well with? And that's on purpose coming afterwards. Some people will say it's the same as the above, and sometimes it's something very different. And that's important for somebody to see that they might be looking for something different than what they tend to get along well with. So that's why there's 2 questions like that. After that, I ask also some generic questions about what they're looking for and the type of life they want to create with someone. So that information comes to me all in print. And again, that's just a paper of a person. I then follow up usually with a phone call or an in-person meeting to try and find out, who that person really is and get a sense of the personality. And then when I'm thinking of a potential match, I'm teasing out some of those really important things and making sure that they match. I ask people at the end for something called the 3 deal breakers. And those are the absolute must-haves or must-not-haves. And at the end of the day, those are the 3 things I always look at before I set up a date. And if there's any problem with those 3 things, those are the ones that I'll probably not set up the date.
What are some examples of a deal breaker?
So sometimes like non-smoking would be a deal breaker, wants to have kids, doesn't want to have kids would be a deal breaker. Sometimes it's about a personality trait that somebody finds really appealing or not appealing. It's rarely something physical. That's really rare that somebody will say the person has to be a certain height or size. It's usually more something that really matters to the person. So I focus on those 3 things and make sure that the match will at least fulfill those 3 things, and then hopefully lots of the other items. But
do you ever go back and say, based on the responses that you get, do you ever go back and say, listen, I don't think you're ready?
Yes, that is a really good question. Yeah, I do. And usually it's when somebody has a wish list of they want a person to look a certain way and do a certain thing and be in a certain stage of life, and they want so many different things, and I have to come back and say, you're looking for 5 different people. You're not getting that in a package, and if you don't realize that now, you're going to be unsuccessful in dating. So it's time to grow a little bit more as a person, do a little bit more introspection, look at who you are and what you bring to the relationship, and then we'll have another chat. But yeah, and that's usually a big red flag when somebody is looking for too much. They're not really ready to settle down and give over part of themselves to someone else.
And do you find that too with your clients as well, Suzie, that sometimes they're just not ready?
Oh yeah, sometimes they're not ready. For me, it's more emotionally ready. They have some sort of baggage they need to deal with, or there's some underlying issues, personality issues, or things they're dealing with. And at that point, I'll refer them to a psychologist to kind of deal with those things, work through it, and then come back.
Really helpful. When we'll come back from the break, we'll talk about Stacy Goldstein's 4 steps to tying the knot. Don't go away. We'll be right back after the break.
I'm not special. Cancer happens to people all the time. I take 1 mile at a time, 26 miles a day. I want to set an example that'll never be forgotten. Sometimes it feels endless. But the pain I feel is nothing. I've seen little kids in so much pain. Somewhere, the hurting must stop.
Carrie Fox ran more than halfway across Canada to raise money for cancer research. Every Every year, millions of people around the world continue the marathon of hope in his name.
Was that 4 or 5? He's lost count and still thinks he can drive. Do you think he knows that when he is caught and charged with impaired driving, he'll lose his license and a lot more? If he gets in his car, he'll face costs exceeding $20,000. Does he realize he could have a criminal record for his choice to drive? And it could be much worse if he crashes. Wonder what he'll be thinking tomorrow.
Have a Holden one at 15.
Visit ArriveAlive.org to find out more. Arrive Alive. Drive sober.
Celebrate Ottawa is a collection of stories for, by, and about the people, places, and rich history that make Ottawa such a vibrant place to call home. Tune in Sunday evenings at 7:30.
Welcome back to Ottawa Experts. I'm your host, Barbara Balfour, and we're talking about how to find love in 2018. Stacy, you were telling us a little bit earlier about your 4 tips to tying the knot. It's actually an acronym, KNOT. Let's go into that a little bit.
Sure.
So first one, K, is know yourself and what you're looking for.
Right. So I think we spoke a little bit about that questionnaire, and it's really that exercise where I need somebody to sit down and really do some introspection. Who am I now? What am I looking for? What do I need? Not what do I want, what do I need? And hopefully culling down the list of wants to things that you really need in a potential partner. That exercise is definitely the most important, and I really need someone to do that before they're really ready to start matchmaking. N is networking, and I know that now everybody is ready to put all their information online, but you tend to not share a whole lot of information or even the fact that you're looking to date with the people who are nearest and dearest to you. So use your network, and if you're happy to be comfortable with your parents, fine. If not, maybe they're not the best people, but friends, coworkers, if you work out in a gym and you happen to have a good relationship with your trainer, just make mention that, hey, I'm single, I'm looking, this is what I'm looking for. And I do recommend people have a little bit of an elevator pitch of like, this is who I am and this is what I'm looking for, just to plant a nugget in someone's mind, so that if they happen to meet a person who they think's a good match, you will come to mind because you've already given them permission to keep you in the forefront of their mind.
I've heard of people who offer a finder's fee for someone that that they find for them, and that sounds sort of in line with what you would advise your clients as well, Suzie.
Yeah, definitely. We're on the same page a lot of the stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So O.
So O is it's probably common sense, but just be open-minded. Often our Prince Charming doesn't come exactly in the package we were expecting.
Okay, define open-minded.
Open-minded. Being open about where, geographically where you are. We've had couples that say, I really only want to live here and I only want to stay here, but we have a really great idea of somebody who's in another city, and that's happened for us. We had a guy we knew here who's just an amazing guy, and a girl who's in Toronto, and we just thought they'd be so great together. And they finally basically gave us permission to introduce them, and they've been happily dating now for quite a while. So being open-minded about geography, being open-minded about looks, being open-minded about background. Maybe you thought you really wanted a professional, this person is still in school. Just being open-minded and not necessarily going, as Suzie said, back to the same type every single time. And that's why matchmaking can kind of help. Sometimes you get pushed a little bit in the direction that's not your comfort zone. Just move outside your comfort zone. And the last one is T, and we spoke a little bit about it already, and that's touch. And I would just say to really conserve touch to a very special part of your relationship. I recommend people that I'm saying going out to not touch at all, at least for the first date and often for the first 5. And I know that sounds a bit extreme, but if you make it to a 5th date without having any physical contact, you definitely have some sort of emotional chemistry, psychological chemistry, and physical chemistry. If there's no physical chemistry after first date or second date, don't go on the 3rd, 4th, 5th. But if there is physical chemistry, then it's there, but you don't necessarily have to act on it. You can spend time focusing on the other parts of the relationship.
Suzie, you were saying earlier that if you're with someone who is genuine about their intentions towards you and is really interested in you, that they're going to respect that.
That's right, and they will. If someone's pushing you for physical contact, you have to wonder what their intentions are. If you actually kind of set that line and say, listen, I'm not going to have sex with you, or I'm not going to touch, I'm not going to do anything I'm not comfortable doing it for whatever. You don't have to set a number of dates, but just until I'm ready. If someone really wants to be with you and they like you, they want to get to know you and they like you, then they will respect that boundary. If someone's really pushing you, then you have to really wonder what their intentions are. Someone with good intentions isn't going to pressure you to do something you're not comfortable to do.
I think that's often the fear, perhaps most often for women, and that they give in, they compromise because they're worried they're going to lose the person. But that's not a good reason to compromise.
It's
in this
better
case.
to lose that person.
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah. So those are your 4 tips. Your clients, or the people who come to see you, are they all Orthodox Jews, or are some of them Jewish culturally, perhaps not as religiously?
I'd say the whole gamut, and I'm not even sure if I'd say clients. I think I'd say mostly friends, friends of friends, friends' kids, friends' parents.
Real community matchmaker.
Yeah, it's really, that's why I say I'm a community matchmaker. It's not a business for me right now, but right now it's really just me taking the connections I have and trying to expand that network and make some more. So yeah, I'd say right now it's a whole wide swath of the community. I guess people self-select by coming to me because I do work exclusively in the Jewish community. So, but that might be somebody who's just culturally Jewish and also wants to be somebody who cares about holidays and wants somebody else who's culturally Jewish, all the way to a much more religious spectrum where people come from, are not necessarily in Ottawa. They might be in Toronto, Montreal, even the States, but they also want to tap into this network. So whole swath, I'd say I'll only start with somebody at the age of 22, so anyone younger than that will have to wait. But I've had people contact me from there all the way up to their 60s. So old, young, anything, as long as they're ready for marriage.
And what's the differences in their approaches when they're in their 60s, for example, and perhaps divorced or widowed, compared to someone for whom this is a first serious relationship?
Good question. So, it comes with its pros and it comes with its cons. Those that have been married before, they know what marriage is, they know what's worked for them in the past, they know what hasn't worked for them in the past. So they tend to be able to define a little bit more clearly what they're looking for. That's a big pro. The flip side is they're much more set in their ways, like any other person who's been able to be living their own life for a long time, especially if they're a single all the way into that age range. So sometimes it takes a lot more of that open-mindedness to get a suggestion across. I find most of the young adults, they're really open, they're excited, they have maybe a little bit more of that idealistic vision as to what love and dating is going to be like. So for those younger adults, I think we spend a bit more time talking about what love and dating is. The way we started the show is, just making sure they have a clear picture of what we're going for in this process, and that it's not infatuation or fireworks, it's a true, deep connection.
And what about you, Suzie? What kind of differences do you see between male and female clients, and then depending on what stage of life they're in?
For younger clients, so in their 20s, early 20s, a lot of the work I do is very much based on social skills and communication skills. And then for older clients, it's usually more image-based, so how to personally market themselves the right way. And between male and female, it also depends on the client, but on the most part, I have more intensive work to do with male clients because they're looking for that, where women are usually they feel that they already have a lot of the knowledge. They just want to make sure that they're on the right path. That's usually the trend that I have with my clients. But everyone, and again, within those spectrums is always, everyone has different needs. So I don't have any black and white program. I work with everybody where they're at, and I help them get to their goals.
Now, you're both moms of little boys. Suzie, you have a newborn, and Stacy, your son, is a few years old. When they get old enough to be interested in dating, what kind of advice are you going to give them? What about you, Stacy?
Gosh, I can't think that far from now. He's 6, and he's a great kid. I think I'll probably have a few pieces. Number one is to create that network, to choose somebody that really knows him. Obviously, as parents, we're going to be happy to be involved, but if we're not his first choice, that's okay. But to really use mentorship, use friends, married friends, to be able to get a good idea of what marriage should look like. And then when it comes to actually dating, just to really focus on who that woman is, to not get sucked up in a lot of what's happening now, which is photos and profiles that way, but to really spend time getting to know the woman and to feel confident that if he feels that this is really somebody he could grow and make a life with, then that's the right person for him.
What do you think, Suzie?
On the same line, I mean, for me to focus on values and that this is a good partner for them, to find a companion for their life, for his life, and to not focus on a lot of the looks and that sort of thing. Focus a lot on who this person is, and if he can see himself living with her and sharing his life with her, someone will support him and love him and walk his path with him. I think that's really important. And I mean, as a teenager, I'm sure he's gonna have other ideas, but I want to try to push him in the right direction for sure.
It sounds like you both feel like old school is the best school.
Yeah,
I agree.
Interesting. We have a few minutes left before the end of the show. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience in terms of takeaways and tips and tricks?
Sure. I think I'd share the two things that I tend to tell young couples that are going out on dates. So the first one, and again, it's so obvious, but it's really be yourself on the date. There's really no gain in going out on a date and being a big extrovert when you in fact are an introvert, or trying to crack lots of jokes when that's really not your type of humor. You know, you don't want the person falling for another version of you or the wrong version of you. So I really tell people, if you really want to make a deep connection, just go and be yourself, and if it feels right, it will be right. So go out, don't try and impress a person, try and be yourself, and in the same time try and really get to know the person on the other side of the table. And that's something that some people need reminders of. It's not just a you show, it's a spending time with another person, and your goal in that date is to get to know the other person. So that would be the first thing I tend to mention. The second thing is, when it comes to a first date, I really recommend to anybody that I'm setting up that they go into their first date expecting to go on a second, and I'll explain why. First dates are notorious for being difficult on everyone. It's difficult for men, it's difficult for women, it's difficult to be yourself, and it's difficult to figure out if this is a good fit, because there's so much stress and anxiety and nerves and everything, and it's going to happen no matter what. So I always recommend go into that first date assuming that, barring an absolutely horrific experience, you'll go on a second date. And that second date really allows you to get to know the person. You've lost the nerves, you've had your icebreaker date, call it an icebreaker date first date, but go on your second date and use that date to be the one to see, do you really have chemistry with that person? I've too often heard of people who go on that first date and they come away saying, well, I didn't really feel anything. And I'm like, but you didn't need to feel anything. You just had to feel like it's worth a second date. I usually tell people, just go date by date. Don't worry about, looking all the way down the future. If you had a good time, go on another date. If you had a good time, go on another date and see where it takes you. So
great tips. What do you think, Suzie?
I agree completely. I also tell people, enjoy the process. Don't worry about the outcome. Take it date by date, and first date, just look at, okay, am I attracted at some level, and do I want to see them again? That's all. You don't have to think about, is this my future husband or wife or anything like that. Also, go out of your comfort zone. Everybody gets stuck in their comfort zones and they date the same people over and over again. So try something new. Go outside your comfort zone. Go to an event. Go meet people. Talk to strangers safely. Talk to strangers, If you're doing the same thing over and over again and it's not working, well...
That's the definition of insanity.
Yeah, exactly. Is that Einstein? So, and remember to be your best self. That's also very, very important.
Now you have some great resources on your blog and a free workbook for people to work through.
Yeah. So if they go singledatingdiva.com, they can go ask any questions if you didn't ask them on the show.
Perfect.
And you can order the book.
Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you back in the studio in 2 weeks. Have a great night.